For today's headlines, did BBM blast illegal warning? House probe fair, legal, balanced. COVID patients dropped. DICT launches VaxCertPH. Face-to-face pilot implementation nears. Navotas and DoLE give bikes and livelihood aid. Aliens need visas to enter Philippines. Singapore patrol robots stoke privacy fears. Good morning, I am Venice Bautista and this is Tribune News on Q. Today is October 7, 2021 and these are the latest news this Thursday morning. Members of the press covering the filing of the certificate of candidacy for the 2022 elections in Pasay City and some individuals within the vicinity were greeted with an abrupt emergency phone alert sans the threat of any hazardous disaster. It was a campaign advertisement about Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. disguised as a disaster alert warning. The blast came as the country expected Tropical Depression Lani to exit the Philippine area of responsibility on Wednesday. Buong-buo ang malasakit sa bansa, buong buhay ang mailay sa taong bayan, BBM sa bansa, BBM sa taong bayan, BBM sa masa, BBM sa Pilipinas, the notification read. Amid the allegedly ill-advised use of frequencies, the National Telecommunications Commission or NTC, the agency tasked to supervise and control the country's telecommunication services and radio and television networks, apparently seems incapable of investing in a stricter monitoring system due to equipment being expensive. Cabarrus said the alert could have come from portable cell sites illegally operated. For its part, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management, or NDDRMC, clarified that it did not issue the alert. Under the Republic Act 10639, or the Free Mobile Disaster Alerts Law, warning messages must be hazard-specific, time-bound, and area-specific. Meanwhile, Bayan Muna Chairperson Nery Colmenares reiterated that the law was intended to save lives and not to be used for personal interest. Colmenares was the principal author of Republic Act 10639, which required the NTC, the NDRMC, and telecommunication companies to issue text alerts during disasters and calamities. He vowed to launch an investigation on the matter at the House of Representatives. DIWA Party List Representative Michael Edgar Aglipay on Wednesday assured that the results of its investigation into the alleged irregularities in the procurement of medical supplies for the government's pandemic response will be fair, balanced, and legal. Aglipay emphasized that his panel will not rush its findings to cover all angles. The panel has 60 days to release the report for review and a vote by its members. It is expected to finalize the report on or before December 4. Aglipay made the statement after his committee, following 4 hearings, terminated its motu proprio inquiry into the government's COVID-19 procurement last October 4. He said that except for the issue of overpricing, the committee report will tackle all allegations of fraud and abuse in the procurement of COVID-19 supplies by the Department of Health through the procurement service of the Department of Budget and Management. The lawmaker reiterated that he has already concluded that the government did not purchase overpriced items from Parmalee, yet he pointed out that the DOH is not yet totally off the hook as the panel will still look into the other allegations lodged against it. The number of COVID-19 patients at the Philippine General Hospital or PGH, the largest referral center for COVID-19 in the country, has dropped compared to its number of patients 2 weeks ago, a hospital official said Wednesday. PGH spokesperson Dr. Jonas Del Rosario said in a CNN interview that they still have a lot of patients in PGH. They have 237 confirmed patients with COVID out of their 325 beds. Del Rosario said this is equivalent to roughly 75% of the hospital's occupancy rate, compared to the number of people hospitalized due to COVID-19, which went as many as 355 2 weeks ago. Despite the decline in the number of admitted patients, he noted that the COVID-19 beds in the intensive care unit are always full as patients crowd the emergency room. Due to the influx of patients in the hospital's ICU, Del Rosario said COVID-19 patients still need to wait 2 to 3 days before they can be admitted to the wards. The country on Wednesday has recorded a total of 9,868 new COVID-19 cases, the second day that daily cases recorded were below the 10,000 mark. The Department of Health said the lower case count is due to lower laboratory output last Monday, October 4. Based on its latest case bulletin, the fresh infections pushed the country's total caseload to 2,622,917, of which 112,807 are tagged as active cases. Of the active cases, 76.7% are mild, 13.9% are asymptomatic, 2.8% are severe, and 1.2% are in critical condition. Meanwhile, the agency reported only 133 recoveries, which brought the country's total recovered patients to 2,471,282. Tribune News on Q will be back after these short reminders.
Botomoto Halalan 2022, the Daily Tribune special coverage.
Magandang araw mga katribo! Narito na ang mga makakasama nyo tuwing umaga sa programang Gising Na. Roy Pelovelo, Comfy Manalo, Atty. Lia Badillo Crisostomo, Vernon Velasco, Kim Sancha at Jerk Balagtas. Abangan ang programang Gising Na mula alas 8 hanggang alas 9 ng umaga sa Facebook page ng Daily Tribune.
Ilabas na ang mainit na kape at samahan kami sa inyong pag-almusal, mga katribo.
Sama-sama natin alamin ang mga natatagong istorya sa mga latest na kaganapan sa loob at labas ng bansa.
Simulan natin ang bawat umaga with good vibes sa mga informative and recreational segments ng aming programa.
Maaari niyo rin ibahagi sa amin ang inyong opinion via Daily Tribune Facebook page at Tribune Now sa YouTube.
Makichika na rin sa latest showbiz happenings, mga katribo.
Kaya naman, magkita-kita po tayo mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 8 hanggang alas 9 ng umaga at magsama-sama po tayo sa
Gising Na!
Botomoto Halalan 2022, the Daily Tribune special coverage.
We're back on Tribune News on Q. The Department of Information and Communications Technology has launched the National Digital Vaccine Certificate, or VaxCertPH, for residents of Region 3 and 4A at the SM City Clark recently. DICT Undersecretary Emmanuel Ray Caintic said that the VaxCertPH is needed for internationally departing passengers and overseas Filipino workers before they could enter their ports of destination. VaxCertPH is the official Coronavirus Disease 2019 Digital Vaccination Certificate for Filipinos vaccinated in the Philippines. Caintic noted that as Filipinos continue the fight against COVID-19, it is important to ensure that their vaccination information is valid, secure, and quickly accessible via a self-service portal, especially for travel. The DICT official also expressed his gratitude to the local government units for setting up data rectification booths because the data of their constituents need to match with their passports so that they can use them in their travels. Meantime, Interior Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya cited that only people from the National Capital Region, Central Luzon, and Calabar Zone can use the portal and is limited to OFW and Filipinos who go abroad. Malaya also expressed his gratitude to SM Supermalls for offering their establishments as satellite offices for VaxCertPH all over the country and pointed out that the VaxCertPH portal is for people who do not have a cell phone, cannot download a digital certificate, need help printing a digital certificate, or those who have correction in their data. Malaya also disclosed that they are eyeing to launch the application nationwide by the end of October. The Department of Education on Wednesday announced the initial selection of schools for the pilot implementation of face-to-face classes amid the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic. The pilot implementation of limited face-to-face classes will begin on November 15, and the Education Department said the 59 public schools were from the 638 nominated schools after passing the granular risk assessment of the Department of Health as of October 2. These identified schools were carefully tagged by the DOH Epidemiology Bureau as minimal or low risk based on the alert levels by provinces, highly urbanized cities, independent component cities, and risk category by municipality and city. Guided by the DepEd-DOH Joint Memorandum Circular on the pilot implementation of face-to-face classes, DepEd said they are in the process of providing additional layers of protection for these schools in preparation for the pilot phase. They are set to conduct extensive coordination with concerned local government units and multi-level and multi-sectoral orientation among involved stakeholders. They will also administer site inspection and simulation to ensure the availability of school implementation and contingency plan, hygiene and sanitation materials, hand-washing facilities, and standard classrooms, among others, it added. Meanwhile, the DOH will provide a rolling assessment every Monday to increase the number of participating schools to 120, and DepEd regional directors may submit justification for inclusion of specific schools for further evaluation. The Department of Labor and Employment, in partnership with the city government of Navotas, awarded bicycles and livelihood assistance to 28 recipients of the Vaccination Project. Recipients of the project included graduates of Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program and the Bidahan program of the Navotas Anti-Drug Abuse Council. The vaccination beneficiaries also received a cell phone, 5,000 pesos worth of load, helmet, water tumbler, and a delivery bag. Representative John Ray Tiangco led the turnover ceremonies together with Attorney Marion Sevilla, DoLE NCR Assistant Regional Director, and DoLE Kamanava Director Ruela Grande. COVID-19 has severely affected the livelihood of many Navoteños. DoLE's vaccination project not only gives an incentive to those who are fully vaccinated, but also lends a lifeline to those who strive to move forward amid the challenges of the pandemic, City Mayor Toby Tiangco said. Meanwhile, Representative Tiangco reminded the beneficiaries to take care and make good use of what the government has given them. Let us help ensure the success of this project so our government will continue to fund its implementation, and this, in turn, will benefit more Navoteños, John Ray said. The vaccination program under the Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa Ating Disadvantaged or Displaced Workers aims to incentivize informal workers who have already completed 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccine and help them find alternative sources of livelihood. Tribune News on He will be back. Stay with us.
Botomoto Halalan 2022, the Daily Tribune special coverage.
It's time for the world to know. Outstanding Filipinos in America. The 11th Outstanding Filipinos in America Awards 2021. A salute to the heroes of coronavirus. Coming back live in person at the Carnegie Hall in New York City, home of the TOFA Awards since 2011.
Botomoto Halalan 2022, the Daily Tribune special coverage.
You are still watching Tribune News on Q. In other news, the Bureau of Immigration on Wednesday reminded all foreign nationals intending to travel to the Philippines that they must secure the appropriate visa to be able to enter the country. Immigration Commissioner Jaime Morente said the Philippines remains closed to all foreign tourists due to the COVID-19 pandemic following the resolutions from the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. Thus, only foreign nationals with valid and existing visas are allowed to enter the country. Morente added that tourists or temporary visitors who are coming here for business, humanitarian, or other meritorious reasons should apply for 9A visas and entry exemption documents from any of the Philippine embassies or consulates abroad. The BI chief added that until now, they are receiving reports of aliens being turned back at their port of origin because they don't have valid visas and EED when they arrive in the country. He lamented that exclusions of improperly documented aliens at the airports continue despite the Bureau's repeated reminders and public advisories on the need to have a visa via its website, the social media sites, and the press. Morente again reminded airline companies that it is also their responsibility to see to it that foreign nationals who book their flights to the Philippines should have valid visas and EED before they are allowed to board the flight. He issued a statement upon learning that 3 foreign nationals were recently turned back by BI officers at the Mactan Cebu International Airport for failure to present valid entry visas upon their arrival. Morente said that airlines are subjected to administrative fines if they board improperly documented foreign nationals, and they wish to reiterate the importance of proper documentation to avoid such incidents. For our world news, Singapore has trialed a patrol robot that blasts warnings at people engaging in undesirable social behavior, adding to an arsenal of surveillance technology in the tightly controlled city-state that is fueling privacy concerns. From vast numbers of CCTV cameras to trials of lampposts kitted out with facial recognition tech, Singapore is seeing an explosion of tools to track its inhabitants. Officials have long pushed a vision of a hyper-efficient, tech-driven smart nation, but activists say privacy is being sacrificed and people have little control over what happens to their data. The government's latest surveillance devices are robots on wheels with 7 cameras that issue warnings to the public and detect undesirable social behavior. This includes smoking in prohibited areas, improperly parking bicycles, and breaching coronavirus social distancing rules. The government defended its use of robots, saying they were not being used to identify or take action against offenders during the tech's trial and were needed to address a labor crunch as the population ages. The workforce is actually shrinking, said Ong Kahing, from the government agency that developed the Saver robots, adding they could have reduced the number of officers needed for foot patrols. And that wraps up the stories this morning. Before we go, we would like to thank the SM Store, Aranda Center, Department of Tourism, MG Motors, Hina Motors, Security Bank, and Overseas Community Affairs Council member Alan Lin of Republic of China for their continued support. Again, this is Venice Bautista, and you are watching Tribune News on Q. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay at home. Good morning!
Botomoto Halalan 2022, the Daily Tribune special coverage.